This is When the Fuck Did I Become Old? The fun, edgy, and unapologetically honest podcast about the experience of aging, where, as the name suggests, nothing is off limits. And I'm your host, Jo Parker, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kev Stockbridge. And today, we're sharing our experiences of finding yourself post-divorce and in later life. Especially when you think about 40% of all marriages end in divorce, 25% of which are actually over 50. And there has been a 46% increase in divorce over 65s. So, Kev, you have divorced later in life than I did. Tell me about your experience.
So I think there's a lot of similarities for people between the effects of a life event such as divorce, but also the effects of a subsequent life event, retirement.
Right.
And I'd like to put forward just a few things I think are common characteristics, right? So both of those life events involve a loss of whatever your previous life structure was. Accompanying that is a shift in identity. Who are you now?
Yeah.
You can lose with both of those life events. Actually, you can lose significant friendships. And obviously, both of those life events have a big financial impact, whether it be as a result of divorce or whether it be as a result of losing your job and retiring.
Yeah.
So all of those are massive changes that I think it'd probably be surprising to people that how much similarity there is between that kind of almost there's a bereavement type thing too, right? There's a grief and a loss. And so I think divorce, retirement actually have similar challenges. So it's just worth thinking about it in that context. I mean, you have some experience of not a divorce, but separation, certainly because you weren't married when you had your kids. But what do you think?
So, yeah, I agree with you. Divorce or separation, in my case, is still a massive shift in identity and a loss of everything you dreamed it would be, and then a change in your financial and living circumstances. Whether you're stay in the family home, which I eventually managed to buy back, but whether or not you stay in the family home or not, you're there by yourself as a single parent. So yeah, divorce is difficult. I was in my 40s, my early 40s, when I separated from the father of my children, and my children were really young. So for me at that point, I was still in the playground, so I was still able to make friends with other parents. And I haven't retired yet, as you know, may never retire. But I think the thing that I can compare the divorce, retirement, re-identity is the fact that I am re-identifying myself. As we know, I'm moving away from estate agency and I'm now doing podcasting. So that's a completely new thing. Who am I? I am a podcaster. I'm not an estate agent. And also I've moved areas. So I'm having to re-establish myself as a person with new people in the new area that I'm in. So having to go out and make friends. So that's all, the life changes and the loss of, well, they're still my friends, but I don't see them. The loss of the financials at the point of divorce, absolutely. But right now I think the big impact of divorce, retirement, or whatever massive change you happen in your life is re-identifying yourself.
Right. So, I mean, on the identity topic, you could argue I had an advantage in that I'd already lost my identity. So maybe at divorce there wasn't that much more to lose. But I think.
So what do you mean by that?
Well, so I mean, in your 40s, generally speaking, is kind of like the family building decade. You know, so certainly was for me anyway. Got married when I was 39 and then had my first kid when I was 42, 41, 42. And then next one 2 years later. So my 40s were very much about consolidating my professional success, if you like, obviously looking for promotions, salary increases, etc., and you're funding a family, right? So you've gone from being a couple, two income, dinkies as they used to call them, dual income, no
Yeah.
kids, and you've gone from being that to one income, two kids and a wife. So that's a different burden to carry, and so you now have other responsibilities, you have other demands on your time, you have certainly additional demands on your finances. So in my 40s, a lot of the things that I used to do before I got married, before I had kids, I kind of incrementally stopped doing all of those things. I used to go rollerblading, I stopped that. I used to go on snowboarding holidays, I stopped that. I used to play my guitar, stopped that. Used to have a motorbike that got stolen, so my Harley got stolen. So that got stolen before we moved into the family house, as it were, and so the money for the insurance claim turned into a sofa. And as a result of that, records, I was a huge. Well, as you can see behind me, there's a bunch of records here. So I was big into music, and my records stayed in boxes in the garage for an entire decade. They never came out, because it was never safe to have a turntable out or a bunch of speakers out without kids sticking pencils through them or something like that. So, so I'd kind of already, through the process of becoming a family man, I'd kind of sacrificed many aspects of my identity. So when divorce finally came along, funnily enough, that I obviously then had lots of spare time, if you want to call it that, right?
Yes.
But I didn't have a clue what to do with it, because I'd already stopped doing all of the thing I didn't have any hobbies anymore. I had no activities. I had no hobbies. I had no pastimes. Gigs, I'd kind of stopped going to gigs as well. I used to do a lot of gigs. So other than the sort of custody rota of having the kids on a predetermined cycle, which gave me a purpose, that gave me something. I knew I had to have the kids a certain number of days and take them to school and all that kind of stuff, and do homework with them, and wash their kit. And
can I interrupt?
Do that. Yeah, go on.
Can I interrupt there? Because for me, the alternate weekends off were my time for me to have fun and to be who I was without the kids. So you've got your structure, your purpose, and for me, I'm like, yay! I've got X amount of time every other week. I can plan my life. So it's interesting, isn't it, from the main caregiver's point to the who's doing the
I mean, certainly for the first 6 months, those empty weekends, if you like, I didn't rejoice in the way that you're rejoicing. I genuinely had no idea what the hell am I going to do. I could watch the Grand Prix,
Yeah.
But other than that, I'd lost any drive that I had previously had to do anything for myself, for my own benefit, if you like.
Yeah.
And it took a while for me to go, well, with an empty evening ahead after you come home from work, what am I going to do? And I think the first two things, the kind of easiest two things to sort of pick up, because I didn't necessarily have to involve commitments from other people, was rollerblading. There's organised skates in London on a Wednesday, a Friday, and a Sunday, so you could just join them. So I did a bit of that, which was something I used to do, and so that was kind of easy to pick back up again to fill a little bit of time. But you were kind of doing it on your own, really. I didn't really know any people that were in the skate. And then gigs, I did find the odd friend to kind of go, hey, should we get some tickets and go see a band? And so started doing a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that came along completely unexpectedly, to be honest, and which then has helped me with friendships and helped me with sustaining friendships, was actually getting back into motorcycling, which I didn't anticipate doing at all, and kind of happened a little bit by accident. As I say, I used to have a motorbike before I was married, but it got stolen. and
turned into a sofa.
Yeah, it turned into a sofa. And then as part of the divorce process, we had a second home in the south of France, and we had to sell that. And I was really good friends with my next door neighbour out there. And so it got to the point of sale. My neighbour has a motorbike, so he'd been saying for a long time we should do a bike trip, and he knew I was selling the house, and he knew I was coming out that particular summer in 2018. I was coming out that summer to kind of finish off, sort of, preparing it for sale and close the deal. And he'd said to me, so when you come out, you need to hire a bike, right? And we'll go do like a trip of a few days or something. Only I hadn't ridden a motorbike. I think I'd ridden it once in like 10 years, And so I was actually quite nervous about the idea of hiring a Harley in South France. and we were going to go into the mountains. We were going to go to the Gorge de Verdun and also to Monton. And so I was like, okay, I really don't know if I'm actually even safe to ride. So I started doing a little bit of training. They have a course here called Babies, which is born again bikers. So I did a born again biker course where they take people in their 40s and 50s who used to have a motorbike, used to ride, but have completely, no recent road experience, etc. And so I did that in Surrey. I did that I think it was like near Epsom. I did that and did some training with them. So I sort of reacquainted myself with skills of actually riding, and then went out, did the trip with Francois, and we had a great time. We had a great time over a couple of days. And that kind of made me think about it. And then about 6-7 months later, I went out for dinner with some friends and was talking about this trip I'd done. And the wife present at that particular dinner said to her other half, "Oh, you should do that. You should do that with Kev. Like, you'd really like that." Because he used to ride motorbikes. Her husband used to ride motorbikes, and again, his was like locked up in another country. He'd moved country. He didn't have a bike in London, etc. So then he joined me and Francois in 2019, and the trip got bigger, and it also got bigger not just in people. It turned into like a 4-day event, so it wasn't just like a day or two. That went pretty good. And then on that journey, obviously, I'd also met you, and you quite liked the idea of the motorcycling thing, even though I didn't have one. And then when COVID came and we couldn't do anything, one of the few things you could do was you could go out on a motorbike because you weren't going to encounter anybody, so you could actually go out. So I bought a Harley in COVID. Like in the first lockdown, I was like, I had really fond memories of the trip that we'd done with Francois the previous year, and I was thinking, I really enjoyed that. And if you remember, I'm sure everybody does actually, that spring in 2020, leading into summer, was just the best spring and summer we've probably ever had. Like the weather was just amazing.
Beautiful,
and we were all at home or going out for walks, and it was stunningly blue sky, gorgeous weather, and it just made me think of biking in the south of France. I was like, wow, it'd be amazing to have a bike in. Scoured the internet, found one in Glasgow, actually, just outside Glasgow, and got them to deliver it to me down here. And then we did a lot of rides that summer, didn't we?
And
so that kind of got me really back into the Harley thing. And then, of course, this whole foreign trip has now become an annual event, right? And I've done about half a dozen of them now. And they've become such a thing that when I had my 60th birthday party, they got a mention, the trips got a mention as like one of the defining memories that one of the guys there had of times he spent with me was the trips that we do down to South France on the motorbike. So that's really created a gel between the three of us on that trip. And then this year, that 3-man trip turned into a 4-man trip, so through a more sadly, sort of convoluted reason.
But sadly, because Francois had a stroke, didn't he? So that's another defining moment for you, is my close friend has had a stroke. There is an end to this runway.
Yeah, I mean that is a big thing. So yeah, unfortunately, one of the three of us did have a stroke this May. He's recovered really, really well. And when we went out this summer, he was able to drive a car, not yet able to ride a motorbike, but was able to drive his car. So that's good. So consequently, we had another friend, and he volunteered to come out and do a bit of co-driving with Francois so that he could participate in and come with us, albeit in his car,
Yeah.
to all the places that we were going on the bikes. But I mean that little friendship group, which has sort of organically grown, funnily enough, in parallel, I mentioned gigs earlier. In parallel, the going to gigs thing has turned out post-divorce to be a massive part of my life, and with some of the same people. So just before we went to that trip to South France this year, literally 2 days before, I was at the Smashing Pumpkins with both Andy and Roland, so 2 of the 4 of us, or 3 of the 4 of us, I should say, were at the same gig. And then, a week before that, we were at Oasis, right? And with Roland. So actually building memories and sharing experiences through stuff that you actually do like doing, and in my case, this happens to be gigs, motorbikes. I wouldn't have predicted, I have to say, I wouldn't have predicted at 50 when I was getting divorced that was going to come back in such a big way. And it's been hugely rewarding. And now we have the problem as we all get older, we kind of go, oh shit, how do we beat the last trip? How do we make it even more memorable? When, as you say, obviously we're hoping that Francois can get back on his motorbike for next year. And that his recovery continues. But that does then make you question your mortality. When a close acquaintance of yours has something like that, you question your own mortality. You go, oh wow, maybe I can't carry on this forever. Like at some point, there'll be an end to that. Hopefully not too soon.
Yeah, and in our previous episode, we talk about changing, and so even though you're now at a stage where you have no kids at home and you've found the friendship, but at some stage this particular motorbike trip may stop, may change into I don't know, cars, what they call mobility scooters. The whole thing has got
hopefully not
an end to it. Did you just say fuck off?
No, I said hopefully not. Although fuck off might have been a better response. But
probably would have done. But in the moment, your identity, part of your identity, which is something that you were talking about at the beginning as a loss of identity for divorce, part of your identity is the fact that you are a biker. And that has carried on, and that has carried over into your work life, because we are recording this before you go, but this episode will be out whilst you're in India. And in India, they've invited you to hire a bike because they know you are a biker. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have got a business trip to India, actually. You're right, in a week's time. And funnily enough, so one of the things, you and I did it in May, right? We did the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. So there's a big organised motorcycle ride in May, which this year is the first time I've ever done it. I didn't really know it existed, and how I've not known about it, I'm not quite sure. But its purpose is to raise money for men's mental health and for prostate cancer charities. So I found out about it. We went to the Guildford one, but they're all over the UK. And in fact, they're all over the world. They all happen on the same day around the world. And the Guildford one turned out to be the largest DGR, Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, in the whole of Europe, larger than any ride in the Americas this year. And there was about 1,300 bikes, I think, in the end. 1,300 bikes. Yeah. And then we raised over £1,000, right? So just for our bike, we raised over £1,000 in charitable donations, so sponsorships. So that was good. But I forgot where I was going with this now. But the identity. That was it. It was a DGR because I was pestering people at work for sponsorship, and I was sending them shots of like the bike and the event, etc. They therefore know that I ride a Harley, right? And so when this business trip came up, a bunch of the guys that are in the team in India said, "Oh, because they ride motorbikes as well. They've got Royal Enfields out there, so that's quite popular in India. The sort of resurging Royal Enfield brand." So they were, oh, we'll get you a bike. You have to come out. We've got to go for a ride. So now I'm having to take my helmet, my jacket, because we're going to go the team's going to go do a bike ride, motorbike ride in India when I get there next week. So, yeah, that is kind of cool. But
so it is really cool because you would never have thought that you'd be doing that when you divorced round about the age of 50. You'd never thought you were doing that into your early 60s, did you?
No, but identity, see, this is another funny thing. You can think about lots of things you're passionate about or think about things you're interested in. There is, I have read somewhere in a book, identity is what you do. Yeah. And so one of the problems with people who work a lot, and I was one of those, is if you work a lot, then that is what you are. Yeah, because you're spending 80% of your waking hours doing that particular job, that particular profession. You identify as that. What am I? I'm a program manager, I'm a project manager, whatever. And the fact that I go to gigs and I ride motorcycles means I am a gig going guy, you know, and I am a biker. Now, the guitars in the background, I'd love to call myself a guitarist. However, they have suffered, and I don't play those enough. So I'm not sure I actually qualify as a guitarist currently, because you say, do you sit down religiously and play that thing every day or week? No, I bloody would love to, actually. And in fact, in retirement, if you would say, like, what's one thing out of the panoply of hobbies and interests that you've had in the past that you would like to spend more time doing in retirement, is that, because I dread to think quite how bad I am as a guitar player at this point in time, but it's pretty awful.
Brilliant. So the other thing that the motorbiking has done is that you and I have started to make friends, and they're probably friends that you have, people that you have worked with, we bumped into, and we're starting to make friends in the area together, as well as me making friends. I'm going to go out and make friends by myself. But we went to somebody's party, and we're talking about the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, and there are quite a few people with their wives who said they want to join us next year. So that's, again, you're going to gather a few more friends in a hobby that you have, which is something that I'm trying to do. So in terms of me working out what I want to do in this area, I have joined a networking group. Now, I don't like networking groups per se. I don't like the sort of transactional, is my business card, give me a referral type thing. But this one is an intimate group of just 100 people across Surrey and London, and I'm mainly in Surrey based. And for me, it's people who understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur and to have that sort of like, I'm creating something from nothing feeling about it, and the energy that it needs, and the fact that you do need that kind of support. So, and I'm making friends there, as well as having gone to gigs with you recently. People have started, a couple have reached out and said, let's go to a gig together. Now, they're people that I've known, but not necessarily people that I would have reached out to before and said, you two are my friends, let's go to a gig. But it's just like, it's an expansion in terms of doing something. So I think it's really important to do stuff in order to expand. You and I, we talked about this before, we're at the gym. We are probably the oldest people at the gym, but rather be the oldest people at the gym than the youngest people at the bowling club or the knitting club. But we are starting to create people. We've got a group that we go to paddle with, which we're doing tomorrow. And we've got a group the same group we go out for dinner with. And we've got a group that we've gone to a retreat with, and we're going out for dinner with them this week as well. So I think in order to remain active or to create friendships, you do need to have something to do. And then that, as you say, what you do creates your identity. Sorry, I've waffled. What do you think?
No, totally. And I mean, I think it's shared experiences, right? So even, I mean, like Friday morning, that was ridiculous, wasn't it? Friday morning, 7:15 a.m. class, which I was signed up to, which you had to cancel out of late notice. And there were 2 or 3 girls there who were I was kind of, they were kind of like, yeah, are you going to be my workout partner today? Or, you know, and I was like, well, I'm waiting. I actually said I'd work out with somebody else. So, but to even have people who are like, what, well, youngest 38, right? And then up to late 40s who are excited to see you and want to work
Mm,
out with you at the gym. I mean, I
mm,
would never have thought anybody would want to do that with me ever, you know, and I
yeah.
never even envisaged that I'd go to the gym as frequently as I do now. And if it wasn't for the social aspect, to be honest, we wouldn't do it, would we? Because the one that we go to is hugely sociable, hugely
Yeah.
sociable, and has absolutely, as you say, given us friendships and connections outside the gym, where you know you genuinely want to sit down
Mm.
and go for dinner with those people and talk to those people, which is fab.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the beginning of finding yourself after divorce, which we have likened to finding yourself after you retire, and I've also added the finding yourself when you move areas and leave things behind. It's all about leaving things behind and um, looking forward. I think you've got to be brave, don't you?
You do, but I think I think you're a better. I think you're a better example of somebody who's brave than I am. But you certainly have to. You have to do something, right? You have to do
Yeah.
something, and doing things that you don't like, hard to sustain. Hard to sustain over time, right? You can make yourself
Yeah.
do something once or twice. You can't do it frequently, so you got to start with something you like, right? And
Mm.
then there's a question as to whether or not that helps you build social connections or not. So, like the rollerblading thing, I did like it. It didn't necessarily help me build any social connections. So, you know,
Yeah.
I kind of had to like move on. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
and and some things unexpectedly, such as the gym thing for me, I didn't go into that with that expectation. I only went into the gym thing as a knee jerk reaction to giving up smoking. And because
Yeah.
I'd
No.
stopped smoking, I had to go to the gym because otherwise I was going to come home and literally hit a wall or something. So I was so wired from not smoking that I had to physically do something, and so made myself go to the gym just because it was actually a distraction from
Hmm.
thinking about smoking, and it's a
Yeah.
complete accident that it happens to have generated some relationships and some friendships, which is fab, absolute bonus.
Yeah, it's fab. And given you a different identity, one that you never thought you would have in your early 60s.
No, I mean they've even printed me a T-shirt with Kev the Ledge on it, you
I
know,
know.
and
I know.
which is the Instagram handle I've got, Kev the Ledge,
I
and
know.
so who would have thought it? And when we turned up, was it yesterday? James, who was leading the class, said, "Oh, it's Kev the Ledge." So you go, okay, I would never have thought that at 61 I would be known as Kev the Ledge, by people in the gym. But hey,
Yeah. So you never know. But if you don't do anything, nothing will happen.
no.
So I'm going to end it there because it's a huge topic and obviously it is very personal. But I think the key takeaway from this, Kev, if correct me if I'm wrong, is do stuff and then revisit stuff that you did and see what you like, and then from there make friends.
Yeah, I think so.
Great.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for joining me again, and I'll see you soon. In a minute,
Cheers.
probably when I leave the room. Okay, bye.